The stage is set for controversy on the nation's favorite late-night show tonight. In the glare of the studio lights, a beloved celebrity, Justin Bieber, joins the charismatic but often controversial host, Jessica Morgan. The evening turns sharply when what was meant to be a night of laughs crosses a line with a single, ill-considered remark. What happens when the laughter stops and the line is crossed? Tune in to witness the moment that could redefine Justin Bieber's public image and Jessica Morgan's career. Watch as a joke falls flat and potentially creates a chain reaction that ripples through entertainment. Don't miss the episode that everyone will be talking about. Justin Bieber stepped into the studio with the confidence and ease of years in the spotlight. At 31, he had successfully transformed from a teen pop sensation to a respected musical artist and cultural icon. His latest album had just gone platinum, adding another achievement to his already impressive collection of Grammy Awards and Billboard recognitions. As he was announced, the studio audience erupted in applause, their excitement palpable as phone cameras lifted to capture this moment. What many admired about Justin wasn't just his musical talent, but his growth as a person. After weathering the storms of early fame, the tabloid headlines, the public missteps, he had emerged as a thoughtful advocate for mental health awareness and charitable causes. His marriage and journey into fatherhood had softened his public image, replacing the rebellious teen with a mature artist who spoke openly about personal growth and responsibility. Tonight, Justin agreed to appear on Late Night with Jessica Morgan to promote his music and his new foundation, which focused on supporting young artists struggling with the pressures of early fame. He waved to the crowd with genuine warmth, his smile reaching his eyes as he embraced the enthusiasm. "It's good to be here," he said to no one in particular, though he couldn't ignore the unease in his stomach. Jessica Morgan's reputation for pushing boundaries with her guests was well known, but Justin had decided the platform was worth the risk to highlight his foundation's work. He believed in the power of vulnerability and honest conversation, values that had guided his redemption in the public eye. As he settled into the chair beside Jessica's desk, adjusting his designer jacket, Justin had no way of knowing that this particular appearance would test those values in ways he couldn't have anticipated. The bright lights felt suddenly hotter as Jessica turned to him with that signature smile that never quite reached her eyes. Jessica Morgan represented a new wave of late-night television hosts who had risen to prominence through social media before transitioning to traditional broadcasting. At 38, she had spent the last 5 years building Late Night with Jessica Morgan into a ratings powerhouse through her unique blend of sharp wit, fearless questioning, and occasional controversy. Unlike her more diplomatic contemporaries, Jessica had cultivated a persona that thrived on creating memorable moments, often at the expense of her guests. Her rise to prominence hadn't been without obstacles. As one of the few women in the male-dominated world of late-night television, Jessica had faced skepticism about her ability to command the attention of mainstream audiences. Rather than softening her approach, she had leaned into a confrontational style that challenged the traditional boundaries of celebrity interviews. "People don't tune in to hear the same rehearsed answers celebrities give on every show," she often said in industry interviews. "They tune in to see what happens when the script falls apart." Network executives both feared and admired Jessica's unpredictability. While her tendency to ask inappropriate questions had resulted in several public apologies over the years, it had also generated viral clips that extended the show's reach far beyond its time slot. Her interview with a prominent politician had made international headlines when she abandoned the agreed-upon topics to question him about a brewing scandal. An A-list actress had walked off the set after Jessica repeatedly pressed about a rumored feud with a co-star. Each incident only seemed to strengthen Jessica's brand. Behind the scenes, opinions about Jessica were divided. Some staff members admired her determination to create authentic television moments in an era of carefully managed celebrity images. Others worried about the emotional cost of her methods, both to guests and the production's reputation. Few people saw the careful calculation behind Jessica's provocative approach. Her team spent hours researching potential trigger points for each guest, identifying topics that might generate the most engaging reactions. Jessica had been particularly thorough in her preparation for tonight's interview with Justin Bieber. His journey from child star to adult artist offered rich territory for exploration. The publicized mistakes, the redemption narrative, and his past relationships. Though the production team had been instructed to keep specific topics off limits as part of the booking agreement, Jessica had her ideas about which directions the conversation might take once the cameras were rolling. The potential for a career-defining moment outweighed the risk of breaching these agreements. As she walked onto the set to thunderous applause, Jessica's trademark confident smile masked the strategic planning behind tonight's interview. She had built her career on creating memorable television, and she had no intention of making an exception for Justin Bieber, regardless of how carefully his team had tried to manage his appearance. The studio hummed with anticipation 30 minutes before the show's scheduled start time. Production assistants scurried between departments, technicians made final adjustments to lighting and sound equipment, and the audience, already energized by the pre-show hype man, buzzed with excitement at the prospect of seeing Justin Bieber in person. This wasn't just any broadcast of Late Night with Jessica Morgan. The combination of host and guest had created electricity that even veteran crew members could feel. The warm-up comedian worked overtime to maintain the audience's energy, though little encouragement was needed. Many had waited months for tickets, and the surprise announcement of Justin's appearance had turned an ordinary taping into a coveted event. Social media was flooded with posts from lucky audience members, and their expectations for the night were high. Jessica versus Justin. Can't wait to see who comes out on top. One tweet read, capturing the combative framing that had become the show's hallmark. In the green room, Justin's team reviewed the agreed-upon talking points with the producer, emphasizing the importance of focusing on his foundation and new music rather than rehashing past controversies. The producer nodded reassuringly, knowing Jessica rarely felt constrained by such agreements once the cameras rolled. Tonight's broadcast represented a particular challenge, balancing the network's need to maintain relationships with A-list celebrities against Jessica's proven ability to generate viral moments through confrontation. The stage manager's countdown brought a hush over the studio. The house band launched into the show's recognizable theme as Jessica emerged from behind the curtain to thunderous applause. Her opening monologue touched on current events with her characteristic blend of sarcasm and insight, building a rapport with the audience that would make them complicit in whatever followed. "We've got a great show tonight," she announced with a glint in her eye that regular viewers would recognize as a warning sign. "Justin Bieber is here, and we're going to talk about everything, and I mean everything." The audience's reaction, a mixture of nervous laughter and excited applause, reflected the dual nature of the show's appeal. They had come to be entertained, but part of that entertainment derived from the potential for discomfort, for moments when the carefully constructed celebrity facade might crack under Jessica's relentless questioning. As the first commercial break approached and Justin waited backstage, both he and Jessica prepared for their roles in the unfolding drama. He hoped to navigate the interview with dignity intact, looking for the perfect opportunity to create another defining moment for her show's highlight reel. The interview began innocently enough. Jessica welcomed Justin with a practiced smile and complimentary remarks about his latest album. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Justin settled into the guest chair, returning her smile with the media-trained ease of someone who had been in the spotlight for over half his life. The conversation flowed through safe territory for the first few minutes. His creative process, the inspiration behind specific songs, and the technical challenges of recording during a pandemic. "So tell me about this foundation you've started," Jessica prompted, referencing her note cards with feigned interest. "It's for young artists, right?" Justin leaned forward, his expression shifting from polite engagement to genuine passion. "Absolutely. The Next Gen Support Initiative focuses on providing mental health resources specifically tailored to young people in the entertainment industry. When I was coming up, I didn't understand the unique pressures kids face when thrust into fame. We're creating the support system I wish I'd had." Jessica nodded thoughtfully, allowing him to elaborate for exactly 30 seconds before subtly steering the conversation in a new direction. "It's interesting you mentioned the pressures of young fame. Your journey hasn't exactly been smooth sailing." The slight change in her tone was imperceptible to most viewers. Still, those familiar with her interviewing techniques recognized it as the first move in her strategy, establishing a comfortable rapport before gradually introducing more personal topics. Justin acknowledged this with practiced humility. "I've made my share of mistakes very publicly, but that's part of why this foundation matters to me. I learned the hard way that fame doesn't prepare you for its consequences." The audience murmured appreciatively at his candor, which Jessica took as permission to probe further. "Speaking of consequences, You've mentioned in previous interviews that some of your behavioral issues stemmed from the intense scrutiny of your relationships. Your breakup with Selena Gomez seemed to trigger difficult times for you. A subtle tension appeared in Justin's shoulders, visible only to those watching closely. The mention of his ex-girlfriend, a topic his team had explicitly asked to keep off limits, signaled that Jessica was beginning to test boundaries. Nevertheless, he responded with composed diplomacy. I think all relationships teach us something. I'm grateful for what I learned then, but I'm focused on the present now, my marriage, music, and foundation. Jessica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Justin's measured response had denied her the reaction she'd hoped for, but she was far from finished. As the segment continued, she introduced increasingly personal questions, each one slightly more invasive than the last. The audience's reactions began to shift, the enthusiastic applause giving way to uncertain murmurs as the interview's tone transformed from conversational to confrontational. You've been open about your past struggles with substances, Jessica said, abandoning any pretense of consulting her notes. Some critics have suggested your foundation is more about rehabilitating your image than helping others. How do you respond to that? The accusation hung in the air, causing a palpable shift in the studio atmosphere. Several audience members exchanged uncomfortable glances. The camera caught Justin's momentary expression of surprise before he composed himself, but that brief flash of genuine emotion was exactly what Jessica had been fishing for. The tension between host and guest had been established, setting the stage for the moment that would soon transform an ordinary celebrity interview into something far more consequential. Before we continue with the most dramatic moment of this encounter, we'd like to take a moment to connect with you, our viewers. Our team has been working tirelessly to bring you these compelling stories, and we're hoping to reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue creating content that dives beneath the surface of celebrity culture. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe and comment below with your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. Every subscription helps us improve our content and bring you more stories you love. Let's return to that fateful night when Justin Bieber and Jessica Morgan's encounter took an unexpected turn. The interview had reached that critical juncture all experienced hosts recognize, when the conversation could return to safer territory or cross into genuine controversy. Jessica, sensing Justin's increasing discomfort, made her calculated decision. Rather than retreating, she leaned forward with the practiced casualness that had become her trademark and delivered the line her team had debated, including throughout pre-production. You know, Justin, I've always wondered something, she began, her tone deceptively light. When Selena Gomez left you, do you think it was because of your rudeness or bad behavior toward women? I mean, you've spoken about believing women shouldn't top men in the industry hierarchy. Was that attitude part of what drove her away? The fabricated quote hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The audience's collective gasp was audible even over the studio's carefully controlled audio. Justin's expression transformed from practiced politeness to genuine shock as he processed not just the invasiveness of the question, but the blatant falsehood it contained. He had never made such a statement about women in the industry. In fact, he had consistently advocated for gender equality throughout his career. Before Justin could respond, Jessica doubled down, her smile never wavering. Your acting career didn't exactly take off either. Was it hard transitioning from being a teenage heartthrob to whatever you are now? She laughed as if sharing an inside joke with the audience, but the studio remained uncomfortably silent. The cameras caught everything. The flush creeping up Justin's neck, the whitening of his knuckles as his hands tightened imperceptibly on the arms of his chair, and the momentary flash of hurt in his eyes before it was replaced with something more complex. No one spoke for 3 seconds, which felt like an eternity in broadcast time. The production team in the control room held their breath, knowing they were witnessing either the catastrophic implosion of an expensive booking or the creation of the viral moment Jessica had been pursuing. When Justin finally spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. I'm sorry, but did you just make up a quote about me being against women in the industry? Because I've never said anything remotely like that. Jessica's smile faltered for the first time. She had expected defensiveness, perhaps anger, but not this direct challenge to her journalistic integrity. Well, you know how quotes get around in this business, she said with a dismissive wave, attempting to move past the moment. No, I don't think we should move on, Justin interrupted, his voice stronger now. You just attributed a sexist statement to me on national television, something I never said. That's not just bad journalism, it's a lie. The audience shifted uncomfortably, uncertain whether they were watching an unscripted confrontation or an elaborately planned segment. The camera operator tightened the frame on Jessica's face, capturing the momentary flicker of uncertainty as she realized her calculated risk might have backfired. She appeared genuinely flustered for the first time in the show's history. "It was a joke, Justin," she attempted, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to her ears. "Lighten up. Everyone knows you're all about girl power these days." The condescension in her tone was the final straw. Justin sat up straighter, no longer the accommodating celebrity guest, but a person defending his reputation and core values. The embarrassment Jessica had intended to provoke had transformed into something she hadn't anticipated: righteous indignation backed by the moral authority of truth. The commercial break couldn't have come at a more critical moment. The studio erupted into frenzied activity as soon as the on-air light dimmed. Jessica's producer rushed to her side, leaning to whisper urgently, while Justin's manager sprinted from the sidelines, positioning himself protectively beside his client. No longer constrained by broadcast etiquette, the audience buzzed with excited chatter, many already reaching for their phones to share what they had witnessed. "What the hell was that?" Justin's manager demanded, addressing both Jessica and the hovering producer. "We had clear agreements about topics that were off-limits." Fabricating quotes crosses every line of professional journalism. The producer raised his hands in a placating gesture. "We deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. Jessica sometimes takes creative liberties to keep the conversation engaging. But, creative liberties?" Justin interrupted, his voice low but intense. "She made up a sexist statement and attributed it to me on national television. That's not creative, it's defamation." Backstage, the show's legal counsel was already being summoned as clips of the exchange began circulating online. The social media team watched in alarm as the hashtag #JessicaLied started trending, accompanied by older videos of Justin speaking supportively about women in the industry. What had been designed as a ratings-grabbing moment rapidly transformed into a PR crisis. Jessica remained seated at her desk, outwardly composed but inwardly recalculating her strategy. In her 15 years in entertainment, she had weathered controversies before, but something about Justin's measured response had caught her off guard. She had expected either defensive anger or celebrity entitlement, reactions that would have justified her provocative approach. Instead, his calm refutation shifted the narrative, casting her as the antagonist rather than the truth-seeking journalist she portrayed herself as. "We go back on in 40 seconds, the floor director announced, the tension in his voice reflecting the chaotic energy now permeating the studio. Justin conferred quietly with his manager, nodding occasionally while maintaining a composed expression. When he returned to his seat opposite Jessica, something had changed in his demeanor. The practiced politeness of the professional celebrity had been replaced by a more authentic presence. A person, rather than a persona, prepared to address what had just occurred. 20 seconds, called the floor director. Jessica leaned toward Justin, her voice lowered to prevent it from being picked up by the microphones. "Look, I'm sorry if that came across wrong. We'll move on to discussing your foundation when we're back." Justin met her gaze directly. "No, we won't. We're going to address what just happened." His tone was not angry, just a quiet determination that made Jessica's practiced smile falter again. 5 seconds. 4. 3. The floor director's countdown continued silently with hand signals as the on-air light illuminated once more, capturing a moment of tension that would soon transform into one of the most discussed television segments of the year. By midnight, the exchange had been viewed over 10 million times across various platforms. The morning shows dissected every second: Justin's composure, Jessica's fabricated quote, and the audience's visible discomfort. Media commentators across the political spectrum found common ground in condemning what many described as ambush journalism, while praising Justin's measured response. "What we witnessed wasn't just a celebrity defending himself," noted one prominent culture critic on a morning news program. "It was a moment that exposed the often toxic relationship between entertainment journalism and its subjects." Jessica Morgan built her brand on creating uncomfortable moments, but last night crossed the line from provocative to unethical. Social media has divided into distinct camps. Jessica's longtime supporters defended her approach as necessary to break through carefully constructed celebrity images. In contrast, others pointed to her disproportionately targeting younger celebrities, particularly those who had navigated public growth from child stardom to adulthood. Media scholars cited the incident in discussions about the ethics of entertainment journalism in the digital age. The network is in full crisis management mode, reported an entertainment correspondent. Sources tell us executives held an emergency meeting at 6 a.m. to discuss potential legal and reputational ramifications. The question isn't just whether Jessica Morgan went too far and whether this represents a broader problem with the show's approach to guests. Justin's team released a brief statement. While we appreciate the platform to discuss important initiatives like the Next Gen Support Foundation, we are disappointed by the deliberate misrepresentation of Justin's character and values. We believe honest conversation is possible without resorting to fabrication. The measured tone only enhanced public sympathy for his position. Clips of past interviews began surfacing, showing instances where Jessica had similarly pushed boundaries with other guests, particularly younger women in the industry. What had once been praised as hard-hitting journalism was now being re-examined through a more critical lens. Former guests came forward with their own stories, creating a narrative of a pattern rather than an isolated incident. Jessica Morgan didn't just make a mistake last night, observed a veteran publicist on a media podcast. She inadvertently exposed the parasitic relationship some segments of entertainment media have with celebrities. They need access to these figures to maintain relevance, yet they often treat them with fundamental disrespect to generate content. By afternoon, the network had issued its own carefully worded statement, neither fully supporting Jessica nor throwing her under the bus. We value our relationship with all guests who appear on our network. We are reviewing the circumstances of last night's broadcast and will address any concerns directly with the parties involved. The corporate equivocation only fueled further speculation about potential behind-the-scenes fallout. As the day progressed, the story evolved from industry gossip to a broader cultural conversation about accountability, ethics in journalism, and the human cost of entertainment. What everyone was waiting for, however, was Justin's first substantive public response beyond the initial statement, and they wouldn't have to wait long. 24 hours after the interview, Justin Bieber posted a 10-minute video to his social media accounts that would be viewed over 50 million times on its first day. Seated in what appeared to be his home studio, he addressed the camera with none of the production values or scripted precision typical of celebrity statements. The authenticity of the setting matched his approach to the topic. "I've been thinking about how to respond to what happened last night," he began, his tone conversational rather than confrontational. "My first instinct was to just let it go. I've been in this industry long enough to know that controversial moments come and go. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't just about me." He paused, gathering his thoughts in a way that felt genuinely unrehearsed. "Throughout my career, I've made plenty of mistakes I've had to own. I've said things I regret and behaved in ways that didn't reflect my best self. I've never denied that. But what happened last night was different. It was someone else's words being put in my mouth to create a moment of entertainment at the expense of truth." Justin went on to address the broader context, rather than attacking Jessica personally. "I started in this industry as a kid and grew up with cameras documenting every mistake. That experience is why I created the Next Gen Support Foundation, because I know firsthand how damaging it can be when your growth happens under public scrutiny. The irony isn't lost on me that this foundation's message was overshadowed by exactly the kind of media behavior it was created to help young artists navigate." Justin's refusal to adopt a victim narrative made the response particularly powerful. "I'm not sharing this because I want sympathy. I have an incredible life, a supportive family, and the privilege of doing what I love for a living. I'm sharing this because I think we need to discuss the responsibility that comes with platforms, whether you're an artist with millions of followers or a television host with a national audience." Only then did he directly address Jessica's future. "Some people have suggested that Jessica Morgan should lose her job over what happened. I disagree. Creating a cancel culture response only perpetuates the cycle of public humiliation that drives so much of our media. She, her producers, and the network should acknowledge the ethical breach and commit to a higher standard." The video concluded with a redirection to the foundation he had initially intended to promote. "If there's any positive outcome from this situation, I hope it's greater awareness of young artists' mental health challenges. The Next Gen Support Foundation is creating resources specifically designed for people navigating fame at a young age. That mission feels even more relevant after the past 24 hours. The response was widely praised for its maturity and perspective, with many noting the contrast between the manufactured drama of the television segment and the thoughtful reflection Justin had offered in its wake. Media analysts pointed to it as a masterclass in crisis communication, though the genuine quality of his delivery suggested something more authentic than strategic messaging. Jessica Morgan, meanwhile, had maintained public silence since the broadcast, an unusual posture for a host known for her outspoken approach to controversy. The network's ambiguous position fueled speculation about behind-the-scenes deliberations regarding the show's future and Jessica's role. In the court of public opinion, however, the verdict was clear. Justin Bieber had transformed what could have been merely another celebrity feud into a meaningful conversation about media ethics and human dignity. 3 days after the interview, the incident evolved from celebrity gossip into a case study being discussed in journalism schools and media ethics panels. Legal experts weighed in on whether Jessica's fabricated quote constituted actual defamation, with opinions divided on the technical legal threshold, but unified on the ethical breach. From a strictly legal perspective, Justin Bieber would need to prove that Jessica Morgan's false attribution caused actual harm to his reputation, explained Maria Hernandez, a prominent media law attorney, during a panel discussion on broadcast standards. But the more interesting question is what this reveals about the erosion of journalistic standards in entertainment media. When did we collectively decide that making up quotes was an acceptable form of entertainment? The network had commissioned an internal review, bringing in an independent ethics consultant to evaluate the specific incident and the show's broader approach to celebrity interviews. Industry insiders reported that several major talent agencies had placed the show on an unofficial blacklist, refusing to book their clients until formal changes were implemented in the pre-interview agreement process and on-air protocols. What we're witnessing is a potential inflection point in the relationship between celebrities and media outlets, noted Dr. James Wilson, professor of media studies at Northwestern University. For decades, this relationship has been characterized by an uneven power dynamic where celebrities needed media exposure more than media needed any specific celebrity. But social platforms have disrupted that balance, giving public figures direct access to their audiences without traditional gatekeepers. Legal teams for Justin and the network were reportedly in communication, though sources close to the situation emphasized that Justin was more interested in systemic change than financial compensation. He views this as an opportunity to advocate for a more humane approach to entertainment journalism, an unnamed source told a significant publication. This isn't about punishing Jessica Morgan. It's about questioning why we've normalized public humiliation as entertainment. Professional organizations representing journalists released statements condemning the fabrication of quotes while acknowledging the complex pressures facing entertainment programs in an increasingly competitive media landscape. The line between journalism and entertainment has become dangerously blurred, read one such statement. When ratings and viral moments precede accuracy and fairness, we undermine public trust in all media. The conversation extended beyond the specific incident to examine broader trends in how media treated public figures, particularly those who had grown up in the spotlight. Child psychology experts pointed to the trauma often experienced by former child stars, noting that Jessica's approach represented precisely the kind of exploitation that contributed to well-documented struggles. Justin's foundation was cited as a vital countermeasure to this systemic problem. Even competitors in the late-night space weighed in, with several hosts making oblique references to the controversy in their monologues while being careful not to appear as if they were capitalizing on a colleague's misstep. "I promise all our guests that we will never put words in their mouths," one host quipped, "mostly because our writers can barely come up with words to put in mine." As the week progressed, the legal questions remained unresolved, but the ethical verdict seemed clear across the spectrum of public opinion. Regardless of whether Jessica's actions met the technical threshold for defamation, they represented a breach of the implicit trust between interviewer and subject that undermined the integrity of the media landscape as a whole. 2 weeks after the controversial broadcast, the network announced significant changes to Late Night with Jessica Morgan. In a joint statement, Network executives and Jessica acknowledged the serious lapse in judgment during Justin Bieber's interview and outlined concrete steps being taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. While maintaining the spontaneous and engaging nature of our program, we recognize the need for stronger ethical guidelines governing our celebrity interviews, the statement read. Effective immediately, the show will implement a new protocol requiring factual verification of any potentially controversial statements before they are attributed to guests on air. More surprising to industry observers was the announcement of a temporary hiatus for the show, during which Jessica would engage in professional development focused on journalistic ethics and responsible interviewing techniques. The carefully worded statement avoided terms like suspension or disciplinary action, but the implication was clear. There had been consequences for crossing an ethical line. What few expected was Jessica's statement, released separately through her social media channels the same day. Throughout my career, I've prided myself on asking the questions others won't ask and creating memorable television moments, she wrote. But in my pursuit of those moments, I lost sight of the human impact of my approach. I not only owe Justin Bieber an apology for misrepresenting his views, but I owe my audience an apology for compromising the trust they place in me as an interviewer. The apology marked a turning point in public perception. While some remained skeptical about its sincerity, many praised Jessica for taking full responsibility rather than hiding behind network statements or blaming production decisions. Particularly noteworthy was her announcement that she would donate to Justin's Next Gen Support Foundation and offer the organization a platform on her show upon her return. Justin responded to his representative. "We appreciate Jessica Morgan's acknowledgement and commitment to supporting young artists through our foundation. This resolution demonstrates how accountability can lead to positive change rather than punitive outcomes." 3 days later, the two appeared together in a pre-recorded segment that would conclude the controversy and a new beginning for Jessica's approach to her role. Seated in a neutral setting without the trappings of a traditional talk show, they engaged in a candid conversation about media responsibility, the human cost of entertainment, and the possibility of creating compelling content without resorting to manipulation or humiliation. "I built my brand on being provocative," Jessica admitted during the conversation. "But there's a difference between asking challenging questions and manufacturing moments at someone else's expense. I lost sight of that distinction." Justin responded with remarkable grace, focusing on the systemic issues rather than personal grievances. "We've created a media environment where success is measured in clicks and shares, often at the cost of truth and dignity. That's bigger than any one host or show, a collective responsibility we all share in changing." The segment concluded with their joint announcement of a roundtable discussion series focused on media ethics. The series would feature former child stars, media executives, psychologists, and journalism experts examining how to create a more responsible entertainment landscape. What had begun as a contentious moment between interviewer and subject had evolved into an unexpected partnership aimed at industry reform. When Late Night with Jessica Morgan returned from hiatus a month later, viewers noticed subtle but significant changes in the show's approach. While Jessica maintained her characteristic wit and engaged questioning, the ambush tactics and fabricated controversies that previously defined her interviewing style were gone. In their place was a more authentic approach to conversation that proved equally compelling without the manufactured drama. Ratings initially dipped but stabilized as a new audience appreciated the evolved format. Industry observers noted that the show had accomplished something rare in entertainment, transforming a potential career-ending controversy into an opportunity for meaningful growth and renovation. The story of Justin Bieber's confrontation with Jessica Morgan offers valuable lessons about media ethics, personal growth, and the power of addressing conflict with maturity rather than vengeance. What began as a moment of tension transformed into an opportunity for positive change, demonstrating how even the most challenging situations can lead to constructive outcomes when approached with integrity and a commitment to improvement. This narrative reminds us that in an era of instant reactions and cancel culture, there remains space for nuanced responses that seek reform rather than retribution. Justin's measured approach preserved his dignity and elevated the conversation to address systemic rather than personal grievances. Similarly, Jessica's willingness to acknowledge her mistake and commit to meaningful change illustrates how accountability can lead to professional evolution rather than career destruction. As viewers and consumers of media, we play a crucial role in shaping the standards we expect from our entertainment. By supporting content that respects the humanity of its subjects while still providing engaging experiences, we contribute to a healthier media ecosystem for everyone involved. If you found value in this exploration of celebrity culture, media ethics, and conflict resolution, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Our goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers feels closer to every thoughtful viewer who joins our community. Your subscription helps us continue creating content that examines the complexities of modern media, but also supports our commitment to promoting responsible and boundary-aware storytelling. Thank you for joining us for this in-depth analysis. We look forward to bringing you stories that challenge assumptions, explore important cultural dynamics, and contribute to a more thoughtful media landscape. Until next time, remember that the most potent narratives respect the truth and dignity of everyone involved.